This is Building Humans, sponsored by Al Mahaba Foundation and Dar el Kalama Publishing. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Today we're going to tackle a picture of our world that is, well, it's going to be a little uncomfortable, maybe even a bit disorienting.
It challenges some of our proudest assumptions.
It really does. I mean, we usually look back at the 20th century as this massive victory lap for humanity, don't we? It's framed as the century of rights.
It is, yes, the era of liberation.
Exactly. You know, you think about the highlight reel. You've got the suffragettes securing the vote for women. You have the rise of labor unions, fighting so workers weren't treated like cogs in a machine.
Right.
And the civil rights movement's dismantling systemic oppression.
Yeah.
It feels like we went down the whole list of humanity and just, checked every box.
It looks that way on paper, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, we love to pat ourselves on the back for being the civilization of representation. We pride ourselves on this idea that no one is left behind.
But the source material we're covering today, Maria Montessori's Education and Peace, it throws a massive wrench in that whole celebration. A huge one.
Because it argues we missed someone.
We didn't just miss someone. We missed an entire nation. Montessori says there is this population of millions living right here, inside our borders, inside our homes, who have zero political voice.
Zero.
No union to organize a strike. No vote to change the laws. They are, for all intents and purposes, invisible.
That just sounds impossible today. In the information age, we track everything. Who is this invisible population?
It's the child. And the term she uses for this group is, it's haunting. She calls the child the forgotten citizen.
The forgotten citizen. Wow. That
Yeah.
feels, that's heavy. And, I can already hear people pushing back on that. They're thinking, forgotten? Are you kidding me? I don't just care about my kids. My entire life revolves around them.
Right.
We've got laws against child labor. We have strollers that cost more than a car. We have entire industries for their organic food and their brain development. How can they be forgotten?
And that's the core of it, the real paradox.
Yeah.
We haven't forgotten them as objects of our affection. We love them, we protect their physical lives. But Montessori's point is that we've completely ignored them as social subjects.
Okay, what's the discussion there?
We've ignored their personality, their will. We've built a modern world entirely by adults, for adults. And in that world, the child isn't a citizen, they're a refugee.
A refugee. That is a very, very specific word choice.
And it's deliberate. I mean, think about what a refugee is. It's someone forced to live in a land that isn't their own, governed by laws they didn't make.
And unable to function without constant help.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
she asks us to do something. And I want you and everyone listening to actually try this. Just get down on your knees,
Okay.
lower your eye level to about 2 or 3 feet off the ground. And now look around your own house.
Okay, I'm down there. I'm seeing what my 3-year-old sees.
You're seeing what the text calls the world of giants.
The world of giants. I can picture that immediately. Everything is just out of scale.
It's more than out of scale. It's hostile. The sink is a cliff. You want to be clean, to wash your hands, but you can't reach the water. The chair isn't a place to sit. It's this heavy wooden throne you can't possibly move.
The door handle is a mile high. You're trapped.
You are trapped, unless a giant decides to open the door for you. And this is where the psychological damage really begins. We think, oh, it's just a physical inconvenience. I'll lift them up.
Right. I'll help.
But the environment is sending this constant silent message to the child's developing brain. And that message is, you are incompetent. You are weak. You do not belong here.
Wow. That completely reframes the terrible twos, doesn't it? Because if I were an adult in a foreign land where I couldn't open a door or get a drink of water without begging a local giant to help me, I wouldn't just be having a tantrum. I'd be furious.
You'd be screaming. You'd be striking out. And that's exactly what the child does. We call it naughty or disruptive.
Stop that.
But from the child's perspective, it's a desperate attempt to adapt. The citizen is just trying to survive in a city that wasn't built for them.
So it's not a behavioral problem. It's an accessibility problem, a civil rights issue, almost.
It is a civil rights issue.
Yeah.
And this leads us to the part of the text that gets, well, it gets really personal for parents. Because it's one thing to buy a step stool. It's much harder to fix the oppressor.
The oppressor.
Yes. The parent.
Ouch. Okay, hold on. Oppressor is a really strong word. Most parents would take a bullet for their kids. We're not trying to keep them down.
I know. But we have to look at intent versus impact. And this is where Montessori brings in the idea of the mask of love.
The mask of love.
It sounds beautiful, but it's actually a diagnosis. She says we use love as a cover for suppressing the child's personality. We say, oh, let me put your shoes on for you, or here, let me feed you so you don't make a
I
mess.
do that all the time, but it's because we're late for school or I just cleaned the floor.
Right. And be honest about that. It's for your convenience. It's faster for you. But by substituting your action for their action, you are substituting your will for their will. The text calls this role the adult dictator.
A dictator. Again, I'm just trying to get out the door. I'm not a tyrant.
A dictator doesn't have to be violent. A dictator is simply someone who nullifies the will of another. When you force a child to sleep when you're tired or eat when you're hungry, you are systematically crushing their developing will.
You're teaching them that their own internal signals they don't matter.
The only will that counts is the one coming from the giant.
And if you do that for 18 years, what do you get?
You get what the text calls mutilated men. That is a graphic term. It is a spiritual mutilation. You create a dependent being, an adult who just waits for orders from the next giant, a boss, a politician, because they never built the confidence to act for themselves.
So to raise independent humans, we have to recognize what she calls the social rights of the child.
Precisely. We have to see them as a spiritual embryo.
A spiritual embryo.
Yeah. A physical embryo needs the right environment in the womb to grow. If you disturb it, you get deformities. The spiritual embryo is the same. If you disturb it with dictatorship, you get spiritual deformities.
So we need to be architects of their environment, not their servants or their masters.
Exactly. You build the world so they can act. You step back. But here's where the text takes a massive leap. This isn't just about happier households. Montessori draws a straight line from this adult dictatorship to the state of global politics.
Okay, that's the big jump. How do you get from a toddler with a zipper to war?
By creating generations of adults who are spiritually broken. When a society is full of people whose wills have been crushed, it becomes susceptible to a very specific illness. The text has a clinical diagnosis for modern civilization.
Which is?
Moral schizophrenia.
Moral schizophrenia. So a split personality, a break from reality.
That's exactly it. Look at the two sides of humanity today. On one side, you have our intellect, science, technology. In this area, we are absolute giants. We are supermen. We split the atom, we fly to the moon.
We are gods of the material world, yeah.
But then look at the other side, the spirit. Morality, wisdom, love. In that realm, we're still cavemen. We're dwarves. So you get this terrifying hybrid, a giant brain grafted onto a dwarf soul.
Which explains how we can build a nuclear bomb, the work of a giant, but we can't figure out how not to use it. The lack of restraint of a dwarf.
That's the Frankenstein problem. The Superman intellect creates these weapons of mass destruction and then hands them over to the caveman spirit. And the caveman just doesn't have the moral maturity to handle that power.
The text has a really stark example of this, right? The paradox of how we value life and death.
It's a contradiction that once you see it, you can't unsee it. So think about scenario A, the healer. A scientist works for 20 years and finds a cure for a disease, saves 100 lives. What do?
We give them the Nobel Prize. We call them a hero of humanity. Life is sacred.
We worship them. Okay, now scenario B, the destroyer. A general or an engineer invents a weapon that can kill 100,000 people in seconds. What do we do then?
We build statues of them. We name streets after them.
We call them national heroes. And that's the insanity. We spend billions on hospitals to save life and billions on weapons to extinguish it. We honor the savior and the destroyer with the same parades. A sane species would see that as madness.
It's like two different programs running on the same computer, and they're at war with each other. A split personality on a global scale. How did we get here?
The text references a concept called man the unknown. The idea is that for centuries we became obsessed with the outside. We studied the stars, the atoms, the bacteria. We mastered the external world.
Well, we never studied the inside.
We completely neglected the human spirit. We have no science of peace. We know more about a distant nebula than we do about the laws of our own soul. We're trying to solve 21st century problems with basically medieval moral tools.
Technologically adult, spiritually infantile.
And this imbalance creates what the text calls the palace on a volcano.
The palace on a volcano. That's vivid.
We've built this magnificent civilization, the palace. It's got comfort, tech, art, but we built it right on top of a human spirit that is agitated and misunderstood, the volcano. And the whole structure is at risk of blowing apart.
So if the diagnosis is moral schizophrenia, what's the prescription? Is there a cure?
Montessori believed there is, and she called it moral hygiene.
Moral hygiene. I like that. It sounds practical, less abstract than just be a good person.
It's a direct analogy to physical health. For thousands of years, people died from plagues because we didn't understand germs. But once we figured out that sanitation and hygiene could stop disease, we changed everything. We stopped the plagues.
So hatred and war are like spiritual germs.
They're spiritual plagues. They're contagious. And just as we teach a child to wash their hands, we need to teach them how to cleanse their spirit. We need a science of peace that's as rigorous as our science of war.
But how do you do that? I mean, what does washing your spirit look like in a home or a classroom?
It starts by changing the entire goal of education. Right now, education's about filling the intellect with facts to get a job in the world of giants. We focus on the product, the gold, but we ignore the miner.
The miner.
It's another metaphor. The child is a miner, digging in the dark to produce the precious metal of the adult. We take the gold, but we don't care about the conditions the miner is working in. Moral hygiene is about prioritizing spiritual development.
So protecting the child from the adult dictator.
So their will can develop without being crushed. It means creating an environment where they can practice independence and peace, not just memorize multiplication tables.
So if we stop crushing the child in the living room, we stop creating the adults who crush each other on the battlefield.
That is the direct connection. The dwarf soul is a result of stunted growth. If we let the spiritual embryo develop naturally, the soul has a chance to grow into a giant that can match our intellect.
The text even calls the child Messiah, right? As a kind of redeemer.
Exactly. Not in a religious sense, but as the only point where we can actually fix the software. The child is fresh hope. If we change how we treat them, we change the future adult.
It really brings world peace right back to our own front door, doesn't it? It's not something that happens at the UN. It happens in the kitchen when you decide whether to let your 3-year-old pour their own juice.
It is. True progress isn't a smarter phone. It's a higher level of humanity. And you can't build that new humanity if you keep suppressing the builders.
It's a heavy realization. We have to decide if we're raising giants or dwarves.
It is heavy, but it's also hopeful. It means the cure is right there, in our homes. The child is the key.
For everyone listening, I really encourage you to try that experiment. Get down on your knees today, look at the world you've built, and ask, is this a home for a citizen or a prison for a refugee? And are you being a guide or are you being a dictator?
It's a challenging exercise. But we have to make sure the palace isn't built on a volcano.
If you want to really understand the rights of the forgotten citizen and the cure for our split society, you need to go to the source. The book is Education and Peace, and you can get your copy from Dar El Kalema Publishing.
It's a read that will fundamentally change how you see your role as an adult.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, host, speaker, and expert speaker. Love for all, service for everyone.